Nouveau countdown. Hello, we're live and welcome to this new episode of Odoo Unplugged. Today we're going to talk about translation. So we decided to do this episode in a special way. We will all speak a different language, or not. So let's just welcome our guests. So hi guys. Let's just give a few words about yourself and explain what you're doing in the company first.
Hello everyone, my name is Marianna and I've been working at Odoo as a content translator since January 2023.
Hello, I'm Tiffany. I'm a software developer here and I've been here for 6 years almost already.
It's old.
Yes, and I split my time between helping with the translations and working with the logistics team.
Cool. My name is Dylan. I've worked here for 3 years now. I was in the accounting team as a developer. Yes.
We miss you already.
I did part-time translations and now I switched full-time to translations.
So you see, we have experts and we have people involved in different parts of the flow, so it's going to be interesting. But let's start with like the most basic question. What are we talking about exactly? So translations, so I guess people know what this is. Why do we do that in a software like Odoo? Where do we need that, and what do we use for that? Who wants to answer?
So I can start within the context of Odoo. Since Odoo is a very international company, that means people around the world use it and they don't all necessarily speak English. So what we do is we have a framework set up so that things can be translated into different languages, and that also means when people are interacting with customers who might speak another language than them, it will also be translated into their language. Beyond that, I think that's the main goal for most software companies.
Sure. So more precisely, so we do translate what the name of the fields, stuff like that, mail templates, the interface in general. Also, I guess, or everything that corresponds to documentation and stuff like that. That is more external to the software. But this is another topic, I would say, because it's not automatized. There is no framework, as you were saying, to handle that. So maybe we will touch this a bit more with you, right? Okay. So what do we use? We have a framework for translations. How does that work? So I add a field in Odoo as a developer. I call it whatever weird name in French. I was going to say Dudu, but it does not mean anything. So I'm stuck. So I give it a weird name in French, and I would like it to be translated. Do I need to do something special, or what happens then?
So within the regular Odoo builds, so our stable builds, we have things in place now where it'll automatically export it for the developers so that Odoo developers don't have to remember anymore, because in the past they would forget pretty often. So we export it into something what's called a pot file, which is just a standard template that most software companies use in order to translate their software.
So essentially, it's a list of all the values that you need to translate, and then you have PO files that will match those values with the translation, right?
Yes. With the PO, it's short for it drops the T because it's no longer a template at that point. It's already filled in. And then we use WebBlade currently so that people can contribute either internally from our internal translators or externally from our community contributors.
So WebBlade, what is that exactly? It's something that was not made by Odoo, right?
Correct.
So that's interesting to say, because usually we do everything ourselves, not this time.
Yes.
And people that could be listening be like, well, WebBlade, what is that? Because you could have some partners that have been there for a while and that are wondering what we're talking about, because there was something else before. So we were using another platform, but we will go back on that. We were using Transifex and we moved to WebBlade for the new version, right? So in October, something like that.
Yeah, just before 19, I think.
Okay. Maybe we can show how WebBlade looks like.
And while she sets it up, we can maybe give a little more information about it. It's an open source software, and so we're hosting it ourselves, but we do have a small support contract with the company because they're also open source and we should help each other out, sort of thing. And they're even creating new features for us to help support our needs.
That is cool. That is cool. So how does it work? So you have multiple people interacting within the platform, right? So maybe you can show us very basically like an easy flow in Weblet and how it works?
I think there's
Yes.
another.
Sorry, there was many tabs open. So here we go. So this is the main dashboard, let's say, for Odoo 19, which is the newest version of the software we are currently translating. And here you have an overview of the languages. Italian is my language, so it's the first one, but you can see that we have plenty of languages, and we handle some of them internally, and then there is also a huge community of contributors. Then we can search strings or fields we want to translate. Otherwise, we can click on the language we would like to work on.
And then you just have the list of
And
everything?
we have the button translate, and we have all the strings that need to be translated.
And so basically the overview you have at the beginning is like you know what part of those terms is translated, and so you need to reach, I guess, 100% to have everything supported, like pixel perfect, clean, and everything translated properly into the platform.
Yeah, exactly.
And so you were saying that, so we have, of course, like you, in-house translators, and you were talking about the community. So yeah, usual stuff, usual explanation, you know, the Odoo community, the open source side. So there's a lot of people involved in working with Odoo and on Odoo that are not people from Odoo.
Exactly.
And so how does that work for them within this platform? So some of them can translate, all of them?
Not all of them. So our main goal is to have long-term contributors, because Odoo is huge, and we would like to have people who are very interested and involved in the project. So we usually prefer to give access to people who are very eager to contribute and to help us to develop the product for their market and in their own language. So yeah, Cecile, our team leader, tries to give access to how to say it, like to partners or clients who really want to
help,
to be part and to help with the project. And yeah, so basically before in Transifex it was more like it was more broad, I would say, more open, and then we try to narrow, because there were a lot of people who subscribed, but then only few were translating. So yeah, we reduced the number, and now on Weblet, I guess partners can only make suggestions, and we are the in-house translators are the only one who can really upload translations.
So
and
in the
them.
past they could modify the terms directly,
Yeah.
and so without having a validation from someone from Odoo then?
Yeah.
Okay, and so we wanted to go back on that because it was maybe a bit conflictual sometimes, and people did not agree on the translations?
Yeah, sometimes we were not able to track all the modifications they were making, and sometimes it happened that we were just scrolling or checking the translation memory, we could see that something changed. So it was also difficult to find out all the terms, all the strings they changed, and because there was also lack of communication, let's say, from their side, yeah, or in general. So yeah, now it's better because we receive suggestions, they're just emails with the suggestions of the week or of the month, and we can accept them. Of course, we thank the contributors for their help, but yeah, it's better for us.
But it's actually the same kind of mechanism that, as what we have with the code. So when you want to modify, when a partner wants to modify something in the code, do some bug fix, add some feature, whatever, and integrate it into the code base of Odoo, the standard code base, they just make a pull request, but so a suggestion, and you have someone from R&D who needs to go have a look and be like, okay, this is okay, this is not okay. They discuss it, and eventually it gets merged if it makes sense. So it's the same kind of thing. I think it's interesting to scale, right? Because if you have too many people involved in the contribution and any of them can change anything, it can become chaos quite quickly, right?
Yeah. I think another thing we should maybe point out is just how many terms there are to translate within WebBlade right now. Do you remember how much it is right now off the top of your head?
It was 1,2600.
Wait, 126,000, right?
Yeah.
But,
Sorry.
but that includes full sentences as well, so it's not as simple as it sounds.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We have one question in the chat that I think it's quite interesting. How can a partner apply for contributing to translation? I don't know which language it is here, but someone is saying that in their country they would need better translations and they seem interested in contributing. How does it work?
Well, if you go on the WebBlade platform, before you log in, I think you see a banner that you can send an email to translations@odoo.com.
Yeah.
Yes. So if you create an account on WebBlade, and it depends on which language you want to translate. If we have an in-house translator for that language, you will only be able to do suggestions and they will review it. If it's not an in-house language, then depending on your motivation and something, we can accept you to grant you permissions.
You could become responsible for the language.
Indeed.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
Yeah, we typically ask, though, that they're committed to it, because if someone logs in and then they translate 10 things, then it doesn't look very great in general. And then it gives the illusion that we offer that language when we don't really offer it. And also for the languages that are handled by community contributors, I think they manage who they accept as translators or not, because they're the ones in the end who have to check all the things that the person is reviewing. So I think usually we let them handle it at this point.
True.
Okay, so you know how to contribute now. Maybe you can go back on the different roles in WebBlade. So what are the possible access rights? I think it's interesting for people to really visualize how it works, because we are talking about suggestion, improving. What are the different, I would say, access rights to the platform, and how do they interact?
So we have the default right is suggester. So when you create an account on WebBlade, you automatically are a suggester, and you can do suggestions in any language, any component on WebBlade. And they need to be validated by someone with more access rights. Then the second level is a translator. So you can translate any terms that have not been validated yet. So there's a third level, which is a reviewer, and they can kind of lock terms. If they are sure this is correct, they can mark it as reviewed or approved. I don't know, approved.
So that means the term cannot be changed later?
It cannot be changed by translators. It can be changed by reviewers, the next level.
So typically for legal terms and stuff that are really touchy, we will give a bunch of examples later. You don't want those terms to be changed by anyone later, because you're sure that this is the official translation.
Yeah, indeed. Terms you agreed on. And
Okay, so that was a reviewer.
And then like the highest level is our internal translators. They have rights for all the languages and all the projects and components. They can also manage users within a specific language, for example. They can add contributors and stuff like that.
Okay.
That's the topmost level.
Okay, of course, you need some kind of administrator on top of everything to brand the roles.
Coordinator, I think.
We didn't get the URL to our WebBlade instance. So what is it? Just so that the guy knows where he needs to log in.
So translate.odoo.com.
Translate.odoo.com. You know where to go. Okay, so now that we know a bit more what are the different roles and what all the people involved are doing, I think it's fairly clear that this is a lot of work, obviously. So as a translator, how do you work in this environment? Because I mean, the new version of Odoo gets released. So you have X thousands terms to translate suddenly that were, of course, all I did just the week before the release. Otherwise, it's not fun. And how do you start with that? Do you just take the list and do them one by one, or I guess there must be some way of prioritizing thing, or? How does it work?
So my strategy is to prioritize the modules which are more used in Italy, for example. So it would be accounting, invoicing, and also CRM, MRP, inventory, and so on. So I try to give priority to the most important one, and then I go to the least important. For example, industries now in Italy are not very used, as far as I know. So I'm keeping them for the final part of the translation process, and I'm focusing on the different modules, like also website, appointment, surveys, the new apps like AI or equity as well. Yeah. So in general, I think each market has its own priorities, and this is one of the ways we should consider to give priority to.
This way, the important things are ready first, and the rest can come later. Anyway, it's less used. How long does it typically take to translate everything after the release of a new version like that? Is it done already?
Not for Italian, we are at 94%, but
okay, so it's almost done.
It's almost done, but there is still a lot. I mean, if we don't think about industries, maybe it's even more. Yeah, I need
industries as the last 6%.
Yeah, I have to translate them. So yeah, I would say.
But I would say, aren't industries maybe more technical to translate as well, because it's a lot of more specific terms to the industry itself, and so you need some knowledge for that, right?
Yeah, like there are, I would say, funny ones like restaurant, pubs and bar, like clothes shoppers, stuff like this, which are also funny and easier to translate because it's like general vocabulary or basic vocabulary. So for example, when I'm tired during the day, I go to easier content to translate, let's say, and I do accounting, for example, in the morning because I have a fresher, my mind is fresher, so I can really focus on the stuff. But yeah, I would say like 1 month, one month and a half, if we consider that we do not translate only the software, but also the website, the documentation, and we have external content, for example, flyers or content for Odoo events like Odoo academies, business shows, which include also like email templates, for example, or ads on social media and success stories as well.
So you get interrupted a lot with things that are not translating what is in the code, but that need to be done because we have marketing and
and sometimes even slides for colleagues who will do a webinar or events like this. So yeah. Okay.
To go back on what I was saying about the industries and the more specific terms, and how do you were talking about accounting typically, how do you know, isn't it sometimes difficult to guess, okay, this means that, because you just have like one word, 2 words, one sentence to translate. And of course, in Odoo, when you see it, it makes sense to have just this sentence and these words because there is the whole context around it. There is the whole flow that the user followed to end up there. But do you have that? How do you know when it pops to the screen? If it's an error message, typically, or stuff like that. Error messages, when we make them in R&D, we want to make them as short as possible. So of course we do them in English. So obviously they might be not so short in Italian or whatever other language. But the goal is to have something clear, very short, because there is nothing worse for a user than having something popping on the screen that is like four paragraphs of text explaining everything that went wrong. You don't want that, right?
No.
So for you, doesn't it make things more difficult? Wouldn't it be easier to have 4 paragraphs every time when you need to translate something?
Yes and no. Let's say that, for example, so for accounting, error messages, etc., we try to use the data that Weblet gives to us to understand where a string is located in the software.
Mhm.
I can also show an example.
So we say string, it's IT slang. We're
Yes.
talking about text, huh?
Like, yeah. So, for example, here,
Mhm.
sorry, it's far. We have source string location, and from this text, we could we are able to understand more or less where the sentence is located in the software. But sometimes we are able also to do the flow by ourselves.
Uh-huh.
But sometimes, for when it's not possible, we ask colleagues, for
Mhm.
example, or experts in accounting. And sometimes we just try to guess. And if there is a mistake, the community, the clients will point it out, and we can easily
Mhm. Mhm.
edit it.
Yeah, because obviously, as long as the error rate is low enough, it's perfectly fine to have an error rate. I mean, we do introduce bugs as well as developers. It's exactly the same. And if you stop to validate everything you do every time, things get complicated. It would take 2 years, not 1 month. Okay. Do you have sometimes people, or maybe do some of you do that already, who look at it here and it's like try to have a look at the code just to see if they understand the thing in context there? Does it happen?
So, not in my case. Right.
Occasionally, we do get questions from translators where they say, I don't understand this thing. Could you help give some context? And depending on where it is in the code, sometimes it's a little hard for us to figure it out. Since I'm specialized in logistics, he's specialized in accounting. But if we get something from, for example, from an industry or from HR, we're like, well, let's look at the code. And then we'll look at it and we're like, we have no idea as well. Good luck. But there's other times where we could say like, oh, yeah, it happens when you click here and you click here, and we'll send a screenshot to give them some more context.
Yes, and I would say if you see that it's an error message, there is a clear condition on top of it triggering it. Depending on some setting and checking something on some other object, you can give a few hints already on, okay, it seems that it's because this object needs to have this field set or has a wrong value or whatever, and so this is something maybe you can replicate more easily in the interface.
Yeah.
So there are like multiple layers of that you can go through to solve an issue. So you search yourself, you ask them, and then they ask R&D or the PO, or you do it yourself. I don't know. To say what is it doing? 'Cause okay. Fair enough. So you have to translate things. You have to guess the context of the things to translate them. So
Yeah, because like with Transifex before and now with Weblet, we don't have a preview of what we are translating, and in other CAT tools have the preview, let's say. So sometimes what we do is to go directly on the software. Like for the website, it's easier because it's easier to find pages online or the content itself. But for the software, it's more difficult because Odoo is huge. There are plenty of modules, and we are not really able to replicate all the flows. And for us, sometimes it's just a matter of guessing without a context, or trying to find data in the platform, or asking the devs to have an idea of what we are doing. For example, sometimes we have strings, like sentences, let's say, made by only tags and a preposition like in, at, on, and we don't really know what this preposition stands for or indicates, let's say. So we try to guess, and then again, if it's a mistake, someone will point it out. And
you also have like formats sometimes. So things that are, here I will insert the date. Here I will insert the partner. Here I will insert, and so sometimes it's clear, I guess, I hope.
Yeah.
But sometimes it must be a bit weird because it's just a bunch of parameters put together with 3 words between each other, and what do you do with that?
Yeah. It's the case of tags or placeholders, I would say, because sometimes they are, even if they are tags, you can read like a username, for example, or a start date or end date. But sometimes it's just like a percentage symbol and yes. So we don't really know what that tag is indicating, let's say. And I remember, for example, something coming from the point of sale module, there was this tag, and then the sentence was like run out of paper. Here you have more context because you know that in the point of sale module, you use printers to print receipts and tickets. So what could have run out of paper? A printer. So you understand that the tags indicate the printer, but it's not always the case, let's say. So yeah.
Yeah, and I think another thing we could probably also point out is the native language of a lot of the developers in Odoo is not English. So sometimes it's the wrong word in English or it's not correct English. And sometimes when we get asked by the translator is like, what does this mean? I'll look at it and I'll go, I don't know. I'm a native speaker and I have no idea. So yeah. And occasionally they'll point out things and then I'll go like, oh, I'm going to tell the team they really need to change that because it really doesn't make any sense, sort of thing. Yeah.
This must be difficult sometimes as a native speaker to see what we can sometimes produce, right?
Yes. At this point, when people point out typos, I say, tell it to the team. I don't have all day to handle everyone's typos.
We have one question in the chat. Someone already answered it, but we can go a little deeper in it. So here is asking why we can't translate everything in situ. So since the context is is so important. So I guess the point is, if it's that important, why aren't all the translations done when merging the pull request in the code? And so when the developer is doing the job, and so when you add an error message or a field name or whatever, why isn't it always handled in that pull request?
Because that would be extremely difficult. Because I don't remember how many languages we have active right now, but that would mean translating it into like 30 different languages or something at the same time. So it would take forever to merge anything because then every time you want to merge something, you'd have to ask every single translator, like, okay, what's the right word for this in the context? And then wait for every single one of them to respond and then put it in.
And so if you multiply that by the number of things that get integrated into the code base every day, every hour, actually, even,
Yes.
so it's just a matter of feasibility and delivering the features as soon as possible. Plus, if you make some bug fix for something critical in whatever country, let's say there's something not working for CIPA in Europe. It might have happened recently, and you want to fix that. Okay, you fix that, but actually you want to add an error message because there is something you want to warn the user about. It's going to break things. So you want this error message. It's something critical. It's SEPA. So every day people are making payments with that, are asking their banks to transfer the money. So it's super important. And then you have to wait 3 months for all the translations to be ready. Or even if it's just 1 week, actually. You're just delaying the thing. And actually, the only thing that you're wanting to translate here is the error message. So it's the thing that is not supposed to happen. But you're keeping the feature broken longer just to have the error message fixed. We cannot do it like this. We need to be more reactive than that. And so that's why it needs to be done with different timelines like this. Okay, we are close to the pause, but we can do a little one more thing, discuss one more thing, and then we can do the break. The terms that you translate. Also, I would say, isn't one of the biggest challenges also to give them a meaning that will actually look nice in Odoo? Because when we do the feature, when we design the feature, we spend a lot of time arguing on the name of this or that field, and one of the reasons we do that is it's too long, it's taking too much space in the UI. But so when you translate that,
so let's say that in general, like for official terms, there's not much that we can do. Like we stick to official glossaries, official terminology, and that's it. But when something sounds really new and we are not able to find it anywhere else, like in other softwares, for example, or other glossaries, in my case, I try to find the best option, keeping using Italian, but sometimes it's true that it's better to use English because it's shorter, it sounds nicer. But sometimes we try to create new terms or to give nice names to new functionalities, but it's not always easy.
Does it
That's
happen
it.
that you look it up and eventually you decide, okay, but that thing is something purely arbitrary, it's a new concept that was added into Odoo, that we invented, and that you say, okay, it's easier and it's cleaner to just keep it in English then?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, sometimes it. For example, the name of the new app, Equity, there is an Italian translation, but of course it involves a lot of stuff. So since everyone knows what an equity is, or the concept of equity, the definition of equity, we prefer to keep the English version, the English name, and then use the translation of equity in other parts of the accounting or invoicing modules, etc.
But there's also maybe then, I guess, you need to think about which countries are going to use that, because there must be also some cultural side, right?
Yeah.
Because I know, for example, we have that a lot in French, actually, because in Belgium, in the IT world, we tend to use a lot of words in English. So we speak this weird kind of Franglish slang. And I'm not saying it looks very beautiful, but that's what we do. And in France, culturally speaking, they are very different on that. Everything has a French translation. And so in their day-to-day life, they use the French terms. It's just the way you do it. It's not true for everything, and I would say it's maybe a bit changing because, globalization, the internet, all that. But still, it works a lot like that. So you need to take that into account as well, right?
Yeah. Because I would say that it depends on the field or the domain. Let's say, like for IT terms, we use a lot of English as well. But it's true that we have also Italian terms that people don't like to use.
Mm-hmm.
So in my case, I always prefer to use Italian, because if the terms exist in our language, why we should use English? But I know also that English sounds more fancy, sounds more professional. So it's always always struggle between the two.
Yeah, because well, the opposite could also be true, that sometimes if you use the English term, you will just look like a teenager copy-pasting things that they saw on some Twitch video. Who knows? And so, well, of course, you don't want that in something that is supposed to be a professional tool. So I guess balance must be difficult to find, right?
Yeah. And sometimes for me, the best thing is always to ask colleagues, Italian-speaking colleagues, or clients and partners, and the majority will win. And then if I don't agree with a choice and I have enough proof to say, no, guys, this is not true, I would use my knowledge to push them to understand that it's better to use another option. Sometimes it's also just a matter of taste, let's say, and we fight for synonyms, and it's not really worth it, I would say.
And with this, we can bridge on another question that was in the chat. Someone was asking if basically, why don't we just export all the POTs and send them to some AI stuff to translate everything? Well, because of that. Because it's not as simple and binary as well. You have a term, you need to translate it, because AI can be very powerful. That's not the point. But guessing the context from the POT, no way it can do that. And well, it's just my opinion. But I'm a developer, so I know a little bit what I'm talking about. It will never be able to do that. And yeah, all the research on which is the right term, and because you could have multiple translations, as you were saying, that are. Well, correct, actually. Grammatically speaking, if you just look at what you have in dictionaries, they work. But in practice, there is only one that is used. And that's the one you want, because the other ones, people won't understand them, right?
Yeah, and I have also another example regarding AI or automated translations, or using, I don't know, whatever. Like, for example, the word worker in Odoo SH, if I'm not wrong, before it was translated into Italian, and employee, person working, whatever, to give more context. And
the problem is that
it's not. It doesn't indicate the IT term. It doesn't indicate the person working, but it's just a component. And
the piece of software working.
Yeah.
So it makes sense to call it a worker, but only in English.
Yeah. So we have to keep the English term. And another example in accounting related to type of documents for e-invoicing, like the type of documents were back translated into English using AI or Google Translate, whatever. And at some point we had something like self-invoice for sealing clearance, which was something that was translating from the Italian sentence saying that that type of document is a self-invoice for the VAT threshold. And what they wrote in English, in Italian, would mean self-invoice for the ceiling's height.
Mm-hmm.
So,
oopsie.
yeah, it's and when you read this, you're like, okay, what they are saying, and you have official terms, official tables from the official institutions. So we do also that, like we try to.
Yes, and there is also another big example in accounting from a few years ago. I don't know if that one came from AI, honestly, but it could have. I don't remember on which model it was, but basically, you have those documents, those objects that you can disable sometimes. So you don't want to use them. You don't want to be enabled anymore. So you want to disable them. Disabled was translated like in French, handicapé. So like a disabled person. So it works, right? But it's absolutely not what we're trying to say. And when you see that in a menu in Odoo, I can tell you it feels weird. Huh? It feels like really weird. And so, of course, the image your software gets from translations like that it's a disaster, because just imagine you're a new customer, you're discovering the brand, you're just going to try it, and you see words like that seem to make absolutely no sense at all. Well, personally, I wouldn't pay for that. I wouldn't run my company on a software like that. If they're not even able to do that, how do you want me to use that day to day for my job? It's no way.
And even apart from stuff like that, we had functional issues due to automatic translations or AI. If we have like variable names in the strings and they translate that as well, it won't.
Then it will never work.
Match anymore.
Yes.
It will break the software really. So.
So it's more complex than that. That will be the final word for this first part of the episode. We will do a short break now, and we'll be back in a few minutes. So see you then.
Okay.
And we are back for the second half time of this big translation match. So we talked a lot in the previous part about, well, the purely translation side of things. So now it's time to go technical. So what would be, for you guys, the biggest challenges to handle that? Because I guess it's not just, everything works without any issue ever, and we just put everything into Weblate and that works magically. What does that even mean, putting into Weblate, by the way? So how does that work for you? What would be like the biggest challenges in your day-to-day job on translations?
I think if you develop something and you write stuff in English, for example, people often don't think that one word in English can have multiple meanings in other languages.
Mm-hmm.
Like in English, you often have the same word for a noun or a verb.
Mm-hmm.
And if you just have that word to translate without context, you can do it, because how it technically works is that we have one POT file per module. And if one term is used in multiple places in that module, it will be one term in the POT file, so they can only translate it in one other term in the target language. So if you have at as a verb and at as a noun, no, that's not a noun. Something like,
like save.
Save, for example. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You can only translate it into one other thing in French or in Italian, and it will be wrong in the other things.
What do we do against that then?
So one thing you could do is like add something to one of the two terms, for example, add something specific, the record, or add the, I don't know what.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the developer can do something.
Yeah,
the
the
translators can do
translators
nothing.
can.
They just have to pick the word that'll fit the best in most of the cases.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So in those cases, if it's not possible, what we changed one of the terms in the code, and we tried to put another one that will not clash with it,
Yeah,
or with another term.
that's indeed the only current solution
Mhm.
Yep.
for that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I think most of the translators, they just make do with what will bother people the least.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's really hard to change, especially with like the example that Dylan gave with the noun versus the verb thing. Like, it's extremely difficult to make sure you handle that in all cases. And in English, you can't really do much in that case. You just have to leave it as one word or it'll look weird.
Mm, 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 mm. So it's always this kind of weird dance between, okay, this kind of works and that'll do, or no, we need to change that. But it's difficult because then, of course, if you do that, you could have an impact on other languages, and so it's always it's like I don't know, sand castle. You don't want to
Jenga.
you don't want to adjust too many things everywhere, because otherwise it could just collapse, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Okay. Other things that would be like technical worries that you could have with translations, and that we didn't mention yet.
Well, one of the big things that we had a problem with that was similar to what we just mentioned was that the way that we were handling translations within the JavaScript part of Odoo, for some reason, when they originally designed the whole framework, they decided to just make one giant dictionary, which meant for every single term, there could only be one translation across all of the modules.
Woohoo.
And as Odoo grew and as people used it more, this became more and more of a problem because, for example, when we started having the spreadsheet, there's a lot of words used in spreadsheet that are technical terms that are used in other things, such as bar. Like, you have a bar where you get a drink, and then you have a bar graph. And we were having problems like that because there was nothing we can do. And it's still a problem in 17 and 18, but in 19, that was finally fixed.
Mm-hmm.
So now it's context-based by module. So you still have that same problem where you can only have one translation per module, but at least you won't have an alcoholic bar in your spreadsheet.
Yeah, because indeed, I would say it's indeed probably not solving the problem entirely, but at least we know that the terms will only be shared within the same scope. So the module is supposed to touch only one big scope.
Yep.
And so hopefully it will work with that. It's interesting because it's again one of these examples where we had something that was working in the past, but Odoo grew since then, and with Odoo growing, we added support for restaurant, and so suddenly we needed to talk about bars more often.
Yep.
And well, eventually it didn't work that well anymore, and so we had to adapt the framework, we had to change everything, and so to raise awareness about that to the right people. Because I guess this must be sometimes a challenge as well, right? To just discuss translation issues and possible improvements with technical people. Because, you know, when you talk with translators, they are aware of how languages work, and just the fact that sometimes a term can be translated in many, many ways properly, but only one of them is right in this context. That is something everybody who translated something once is supposed to know. The problem is developers don't always have this translation experience, right? And so does it happen often that you have discussions with other people in the companies? Don't give names, please. That would be difficult because of that, because they don't understand how complex it can be and just see it as a mathematical problem, and so just don't understand the variability that you can have.
Well, I think the main thing that probably touches Dylan close to his heart was we did want to add in a standard feature for translations or software translations where we wanted to add in a context, which would make it so you could actually translate it differently depending on the context that you've applied to it.
Mm-hmm.
But some people were afraid that it wouldn't be used,
Mm-hmm.
which is true. Most developers would probably just never even know that it existed. But the difference is now us who see all the problems can't go in and actually mark it when it's a major problem.
Mm-hmm.
So, and the solution that was presented was the one that Dylan said, where you just slightly word it differently. But then one of the examples that keeps coming up and that the translators just have to keep telling customers there's nothing we can do about it in these older versions, when 19 you won't have that problem, was table.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's no other way to say table in English. It's always a physical table, a table in a graph, or like the table in a restaurant, as in the abstract concept of a table. And we're like, well, there's no other way to word this, so I guess we're just not going to fix it.
Yeah, I'm not even sure we have another word for table in French. Well, we usually have a lot of words for the same thing all the time. So in English, whew.
Yes.
So indeed, and indeed, it would solve the problem that you were talking about, where it's impossible to find something that will deconfuse things, and you have this kind of shared terms, having the possibility of saying, yeah, but here I'm talking about table, you know, the furniture. That would deconfuse everything. So. For now, it's not done.
Yep.
To be continued.
Maybe
next
someday.
time you go argue
Yeah.
about that, I might come with you, quite frankly, because
Great.
we will see about that. But so
Yeah.
that's a very good example, actually, because indeed, I would say to be fair, it's also a typical. It's kind of a trap, you know. When you are working on subjects like translations, it's also possible that you become oversensitive to some topics, and you really want to solve every case, but maybe it's not worth the added complexity. So, of course, and that's their point in this issue. It's always a matter of discussing with colleagues, and it's not. I'm not at all saying that. You are always right and the others are always wrong. I think it's often more complex than that. But on this matter, I would say you're right, though. Okay. Maybe we can go back a little more on the history of translations in Odoo now, because we mentioned a bit how it worked and the fact that we needed to make it evolve. Maybe it's interesting to remember people where we come from and what were the different stages of this evolution through time. So the translation team itself, so the developers, I mean, it hasn't been around for so long, right? Even translators, in-house translators, we didn't have any when I entered Odoo, and it's only been a few years that we started hiring people
when
like that.
I
Huh?
started in 2023, we were 3, and now we are 8 in Belgium, and then other translators in other countries. So it's growing fast. Yeah.
So would you like to do
Yeah, you
this?
can start.
Okay. So, well, I cited earlier than Dylan did. So back then, I think it was just one guy handling most of it. Moitin, who's very active when it comes to community stuff in general. Like he's
one of the old Odoo legends,
Yes.
indeed. And he was already taking care of that when I entered Odoo 9 years ago. So
Yes. And well, you can even see in the commit messages that he was doing most of it.
Mhm.
So it was originally just him, I think, mostly doing everything. I don't know who set up the original frameworks. It's been several people
Yeah.
who've touched that code over the years.
Mhm.
And we should also point out that the general framework concepts are handled by the Python framework team. And then from the JavaScript point of view, the JavaScript team handles that. And then there's specific things within the website team. So some of it even we don't really know that well because it's hard to be an expert on everything within Odoo all at the same time. And so he was handling a lot of the stuff involving syncing with the old Transifex setup. And also I think he handled a lot of the community relations with that as well. And I think he set up all of the scripting to make sure that we sync all of the code that's in Transifex with what's in Odoo. And now we do the same with WebBlade, which is one of the technical challenges. I think Odoo is a much larger software project than most people undertake for translations.
Mhm.
So there's often problems with things being a little slow because the software that we're using doesn't expect there to be so many terms.
Mhm.
And it's something, unfortunately, the translators have to deal with too, with like, oh, the sync didn't go through. And we're like, why didn't it work? Let's find out,
Mhm.
sort of thing. And since Moitin was only part-time on it, sometimes it would just break and then no one would know.
Mhm. Mhm.
So then once Dylan and I started working on it more, we'd be like, oh, the sync didn't work last week. Let's try to figure out why and try to fix it.
And do you know what the trigger was to decide to have a translation team like that, even if it was part-time people? How did it come on the table that okay, we need to do that, we need to change system? Do you know what was the reason?
Well, so the guy who originally formed the team, he's a little bit of a linguistics nerd. So he really likes languages in general. And the idea was that we'd be focused more on the actual translation part. But then it turns out we've been more, I would say, DevOps. Yeah. Making sure that the sync is working correctly, being a point of contact for the translators. Because before, if they had a problem, there were no developers to help them.
So yeah, it's like often we realize at some point that everything is relying on just one person and that people actually need a bit more interaction to make the thing work. And so we start specializing people on that. And then, of course, since people specialize, they find other issues. And all in all, we eventually have people leaving the accounting team to join the translations full time. And but you were right, though. It's nice that you take care of this. And so we just master things better and make more evolved things, right?
Yeah, and I think it also helps that Odoo's grown a lot in the past few years as well, both as a company and usage in the world. So languages have become more important over time, and the quality of the translations has come up a lot more. Like, for example, I think in the past, they just kind of put every single language, because sometimes when you look through the code, at one point, there was like every single type of Spanish in there. Don't know why. And then we eventually narrowed it down, but we still had to get rid of all of those old translations that a lot of them didn't even make sense. I saw some for like English Australian that literally made no sense when I looked at them. I'm like, I don't understand. Why did they put okay for cancel? Like things like that. And I'm like, I hope people haven't been confused by this for the past 10 years, but it's been there for 10 years. So, yeah.
Yeah, because that's also the thing with... I think it's especially true with open source in general, and we see that in the code as well, frankly. Old stuff that got merged because, someone came with a PR of 10,000 lines and we just, okay, we don't have time, it looks fine, let's go with that. Or it was just made very quickly because, business needs and the company needed to grow. And there was a time where it was difficult for Fabien to pay everyone in the company, and that wasn't that many people at the time. And so, of course, the pressure was not the same, and so the priorities were not the same, and the concerns were not the same at that point. And I would say that's how you keep old junk stuff. And over time, there is a moment where someone needs to take care of that and to just solve the things once and for all. And so, people need to specialize. It's been like that for many topics, actually, everywhere in Odoo, I would say.
Yep.
So maybe we can talk a bit more about that. We can talk a bit more about the transition to Weblate, because as we mentioned, it's a very recent change. And the story behind it is kind of funny, and it's interesting because it's a very good example of what we were just saying, actually, of how at some point there are technical concerns that become too important, and there are the right people at the right place that are specialized enough to handle those things, and we can actually move forward and improve the whole situation. So the beginning of that story, I like it because I was involved. The beginning of that story was so in Odoo 19 in accounting we introduced the returns, the accounting returns. So basically, it's a more advanced way of following what you need to submit to the government as when it comes to reports, so VAT, tax payments, whatever. And while we introduced that, we also added a lot of error messages, checks, stuff that will need to be translated in the localizations of Odoo, in the L10N modules. And doing so, so we did that for 18.3. At some point, at the end of development, I realized, but wait a minute, because at that point, so we were still using Transifex, the localization modules were not on Transifex. Why were they not on Transifex? Maybe you can explain. This way I don't explain everything.
For the limitation in Transifex was that per project you have to define the languages in which it is translated. So if you put the localizations in the Odoo project, it will be available in all the languages that are not relevant to that country. So there will be a lot of noise for translators for nothing.
So essentially, translating the Norwegian localization into Italian makes no real sense, I guess. I don't know. Maybe they have a big Italian community. I don't want to be racist or anything, but you see my point. And so, of course, this was impossible in the past, and it had been like that for years and years. And to be honest, localizations. At that point, we knew that very often they were missing a lot of terms, and that the translations were, I would say, outdated at best, because everything needed to be made with pull requests directly in the modules, and so developers were supposed to handle that. But hey, we have other things to do, and it had never been put back on the table. It's typically one of these choices that had been made years and years ago, and that wasn't really put into question afterwards. And so it worked like that for years. We did some things for the legal terms in the reports and the tax names, this kind of things. And here I just realized while adding the returns that, but it couldn't work, because all those terms we were adding needed to be translated, and those were not legal terms. Those were not things that had an official translation. And okay, we could try to do what we could with some online translator or whatever, but it would suck. That would definitely not work, and it would just be a terrible amount of work for R&D to handle that on themselves, because it's every localization. It's a lot of modules, and so I just raised the concern with you, and we discussed that a little bit. And turns out that at that time, there were some negotiation going on about Transifex, and that you had already tested Weblate a little bit, or at least you knew about it, right?
No.
And so what happened then?
Yeah, around that time, we had to renew our contract for Transifex, and with a new management there, the negotiation didn't go very well.
Mm-hmm.
So we were already looking at alternatives in case we wouldn't stay with Transifex. And Weblate was, I think it was Martin who suggested that at one point, because he tried it in the past.
And the OCA is using it, right?
The OCA is also using it.
So the Odoo Community Association, so the open source community around Odoo.
Indeed, and they're using pretty much the same tech stack as we are using with Python and PostgreSQL. So it's easy if we wanted to change something later. So at that point, I was looking into it and setting it up when you also mentioned all the issues you had with the returns now. And turns out in WebLate you can limit the languages per component, so per localization in our case, which would solve the problem.
The philosopher's stone. And so eventually we decided to go for that option.
Yeah, indeed.
And how did it go?
It was pretty fast. It was before the Odoo 19 release.
Because it happened in a few months, right? Really, it's
not even. I think.
Yeah, he had 1 month.
1 month, 1 month.
Yeah,
it's crazy
because our contract was ending with Transifex, so we had to be
Mm-hmm.
ready. But yeah, we had the infrastructure team, mostly Martin, who set up the server because we're self-hosting WebLate.
Mm-hmm.
And then the configuration I did for the month before the freeze. And we were ready for Odoo 19. We still have some starting problems and
yes, we're still
performance
figuring
issues,
out.
but that's normal
Mhm.
in the beginning.
What would that be, for example? What can you tell us that was not working, like, I don't know, last week and is not working or about to work?
But we have, so the way WebLate works is it works with Git underneath. So it's pretty technical maybe, but it clones our Git repository.
Let's go for 30 seconds of technical bullshit. It's fine.
And it creates commits with all the translations that are done in the platform.
Mhm.
And that commit we then push to our repo again for it to be merged. And when it takes too much time, sometimes we end up with merge conflicts in WebLate, which is a pain to solve.
Mm-hmm.
Because we can't really modify something in WebLate in Git, so we have to manually fix it and then merge a new commit that WebLate can pull.
Yeah, and of course you don't want to do that.
Yeah, and for the time that the merge conflict is happening, translators can't do anything because all the components are locked in WebLate and they can't work.
And that's when we switch to other type of content.
Easier stuff.
It's time to translate the documentation now.
Sorry.
I also have another much simpler example. So one of the standard things that we do is when there's the freeze and we create the new project for the translation thing, we try to copy over the translations from the previous version as much as we can.
Sure.
And the first thing that we tried was the auto translate. And then I was looking at it and I was thinking, these numbers don't make any sense, like after we did it. And I was like, I don't think it actually translated all of them. And then we forced a manual upload. And I'm like, oh, it just went up by 20%. And we don't know why. But now we have to do it again for every single language to make sure that we copy over as much as possible. So there's just little things like that because we don't actually know what's happening under the hood half the times. So we just have to guess based on the results and hope for the best.
Dig in the code base of WebLate because it's open source. You can go look
plus
into,
you're discovering it. It's still brand new for us, so obviously you have you need to adjust things at the beginning. It's always like that. Okay. How was it received by the community, by the way?
I would say,
Well,
first I should say that Cecile really went the extra mile with that because there was no way to mass email everyone in our Transifex thing. So she actually emailed every single person who was a former member to let them know that we were transitioning. And then because of
Thank you, Cecile.
Yes. And then because of the switch where people can no longer translate any language that they wanted to, some people were a bit resistant about that because they were afraid of the amount of time it would take for their suggestions to get applied because it's just new and people don't like change. I don't think it's been an issue so far. I don't know if Italian has many community contributors, but
it's been okay. I didn't receive a lot of suggestions. So they complained in the beginning, but
it's
okay.
It's a change,
now,
so of course people need to get used to it.
Sure. I know that Cecile explains also to every translator like why we do it because we want our in-house translators to learn from the things you change, and if you change it without them knowing, it makes no sense. So
and also to keep the quality up as well. because when things get auto-translated and then it's hard to go through 1,000 translations at the same time to see if it just translated incorrectly based on the context, or even worse, if the code gets translated, because the auto-translators usually can't distinguish. And then once it's translated and then someone goes to use it, which is the only time you'll see that it's broken, then they're just completely blocked from working.
So yeah, again, it's a matter of, as we were saying earlier, of scaling and of course, when you scale like that and you have more people contributing, you need a way to supervise everything and to just control that the quality indeed stays good. It's exactly the same as with pull requests on GitHub. When I entered Odoo, we didn't even have the merge button, so I could push things onto stable branch like that and break them. Sometimes it happened, and then we put the merge button because it was too often chaotic. Actually, there were too many things clashing too often, and so eventually we decided that we had to make these kind of things, and it pretty much solved the issue. Except with tours, but that's another issue. Okay, maybe we can, as a conclusion, because we are reaching the end, talk a little more about the future now and what is coming. So we did talk about the localizations, but they're not on Weblate yet,
No,
right?
it's
Because it was too technical to do during the 1 month rush before the OXP. This is acceptable. And so, are they coming?
They are coming. I'm currently working on it, actually, cleaning up all the translation files to put them on.
And if you guys want to know, we need to have a meeting about that just
indeed.
after the episode. So it's coming, so we can expect localizations to be translated only for the relevant languages in the upcoming months on Weblate.
Yeah, and I will say that one thing, which is one of the things I was worried about with doing this, is we don't necessarily have translators for all of those languages as well. So some of them might not be translated, even if they are on Weblate.
So this is a call to you, the community.
Yes.
We need your help. Feel free to as the person who was asking in the chat, contribute. And if you have the motivation, as you were saying, to do that, and you are in some country that Odoo does not support well yet, well, at least the language, feel free to contact us. We are interested. And that will be the final word for today. Thank you guys for all the explanations. It was a pretty rich episode, I must say. Thanks, of course, to the viewers, and see you in the next episode of Odoo Unplugged. Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.